So welcome everybody to this year's returning volunteer beach nesting bird training. This training is a partnership between all the members of the Audubon Alliance, which is Audubon Connecticut, the Connecticut Audubon Society, and the Nature Conservancy, all of whom assist the state of Connecticut with the stewardship and management of our beach nesting birds, which include the piping plover, the least tern, the American oystercatcher, common tern, and if we're very lucky, black skimmers. Tonight is our returning volunteer training. I'm just gonna advance to the next screen if I can figure out how to do that. There we go. It's a fairly short agenda. We're gonna do a quick round of introductions of staff who are on the call tonight, and then we'll pass it over to Laura to do a recap about our beach nesting birds in 2023. I'm going to do a quick recap on oyster catchers and how they did in 2023, and just a reminder on how to report banded birds. Then we'll turn it over to Scott to just basically help everybody remember how to report data, do the scheduling, pick up lanyards and badges and things like that. And then we'll take whatever time is left for questions. So as you guys all know, this meeting is being recorded, and Scott will put it on YouTube probably sometime this weekend or early next week, so that anybody who was not able to participate tonight can watch it, or if somebody wants to rewatch it for some tidbit of information, that's an option too. I'm gonna keep people muted during the presentations, but when Laura finishes up, if people have questions for Laura, you can raise your hand and then unmute and ask your questions. Or if you have a question and want to just put it in the chat too, the number of us are standing by to answer questions in the chat as well. So with that, I will just do a quick round of introductions. I'm Corey Folsom O'Keefe. I'm the Director of Bird Conservation for Audubon, Connecticut, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. I'll pass it to Laura. Laura, you have to unmute yourself.
Again, 4 years and I still get it wrong. Anyhow, again, my name is Laura Saucier. I'm a wildlife biologist with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection's Wildlife Division, and I run the Piping Plover and Least Tern project.
Okay, we'll pass it to Scott.
I'm Scott Krupash. I'm the volunteer coordinator for the Audubon Alliance for Coastal Waterbirds. Most of you know me, and here we are again for the 13th season. Amazing.
Pass it to Martha.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Martha Rice, the volunteer coordinator for the Nature Conservancy.
And Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the Piping Plover Least Tern coordinator for Connecticut DEEP Wildlife Division.
And Joe, I know you're there too.
Hi, yes, I'm Joe Atwater, the Conservation and Education Coordinator with the Roger Torrey Peterson Estuary Center.
Okay, is there anybody else? Because I'm trying to scan the names, but I might have missed.
Yeah, I see Beth.
Beth, is Beth's on. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Beth.
Thanks, Corey. Hi, all. I'm Beth Amendola. I'm with Audubon, Connecticut, and the Coastal Program Coordinator.
Okay, well, I think we are good. So, and it's so nice to see so many familiar faces as I'm scanning through the chat. I'm like, oh, so-and-so's here. Oh, it's great to see so-and-so. So, welcome back, everybody. It's just great to have everybody back for another year of beach nesting bird monitoring. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura. So Laura, I'm going to take down my screen and you go ahead and pull up your screen.
Okay, that took way longer than it should have, but it's Thursday. All right, so I just wanted to start off with a recap for those folks that weren't able to make our end of year party last year, and give you, again, the recap for 2023. 2023 was a pretty amazing year, numbers wise. I've put up all of our nesting sites here on the left and the results of those across. So, but we had 79 pairs nesting on our beaches, and that's the most ever. And we fledged 107 chicks, which is the most ever. And we stayed at around our typical, over 1.2 chicks produced per pair. We are at 1.3 this year. So amazing. And like Corey mentioned, none of this would be possible without your help. You guys are your eyes and ears on the beaches, and I truly, truly appreciate your efforts that you put into these birds. So I had a couple notes here. We did have one new beach last year in Groton. And I believe, I could be wrong, Rebecca's on, so she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that pair probably got kicked over from Bluff Point, but successfully nested at Shinnecossett Beach Club in Groton. Regarding shenanigans, we had illegal ATV use at three different sites, dog disturbance at all sites, and we documented ghost crabs at one of our sites. Not only burrows and tracks near the exclosures, but also we caught one. And there we go. This is Rebecca's photo. And so for those of you who don't know about ghost crabs, they are a native species. They're more of a Southeast United States species that has been moving northward. And now I think the furthest north they've been documented is in Massachusetts, but we hadn't officially documented them in Connecticut until last year. And, they're part of the coastal ecosystem, but they are chick and egg predators of shorebirds. So where we see them around exclosures, we might try trapping for them. So if you see kind of an inverted plastic bottle near an exclosure, that's our attempt to try and capture a ghost crab that we think is keying in on one of the nests. So least terns. These are our least tern breeding sites. Not many last year. And it was certainly the ones out at Mumford Cove. Rebecca and Jen deserve the hard save award for getting those birds fledged. But this is kind of our typical list of birds, of breeding sites for least terns. And the productivity, it's different than piping plovers. So it's not that 1.2 number that we use for piping plovers. It's something different in least terns. And in fact, I don't think we've figured out what the optimal productivity is for least terns. And ours here in Connecticut is typically low, but again, the regional numbers for least terns are still holding steady. So looks grim, but I'm going to have faith that if they're not doing well here, hopefully they're doing well elsewhere. Let's see, and two things last year for that were kind of disturbing was we had two instances of nests destroyed by people letting their dogs run off leash. So two crushed nests with a dog print right through it. So that was a bummer, and we weren't able to kind of address that because we never found the person that was allowing their dog to do that. So that was a bummer. But Again, I just want to takes a village, and you folks are a huge part of that. So thank you for all the successes that we had last year.
Any questions for Laura?
There is a question in the chat about where the dog disturbance were, and I don't know, Laura, if you want to take that, but I'm just going to preface it and say everywhere.
Yeah, it was a tough year for dogs last year, but I know my memory is failing me, but one of the nests crushed was at Harkness Memorial State Park, which was, you know, even bigger of a bummer for me given my agency manages that park. But I don't know if Rebecca remembers where the other one was.
Potentially it was at Hatchett's Point in Oakville.
Ah, thank you.
Okay, well, if no more questions for Laura, we'll move on. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so similar to how it was an incredibly successful year for piping plovers, it was also an incredibly successful year for American oyster catchers. We had 92 breeding pairs and 23 non-breeding pairs. And as you guys know, non-breeding pairs are basically typically they're young birds that are maybe 2 or 3 years old, and they are, starting to reach the at age that they're going to be reproductively active, but maybe they're not nesting this year, but they're starting to pair up, starting to figure out where their territories are going to be. Or sometimes they're a pair that maybe is out on an island, and since it's harder to get out to the islands, sometimes we can't confirm that a pair was nesting. So, but overall, between 92 breeding pairs and 23 non-breeding pairs, that's a population of 115 American oyster catchers, which
Wow.
is the highest in Connecticut, at least since we started keeping track, which I think the first year that we monitored American oyster catchers was 2011. So, the population is growing. It grew by 49%, I think, in the last 10 years. And right now, oyster catcher is still state threatened, but because of all of your efforts, it is looking like in this next round of sort of updating the endangered species list, it's going to drop down to species of special concern. And that's because of success, which everybody give yourself a pat on the back. That's like, yay, we're doing a good job. Oyster catchers are not going to be threatened, but they'll be special concern, I think, starting next year. So that's what it's looking like. But we also had really great productivity again. If you look at the oyster catcher business plan for the entire Atlantic Flyway, the success rate that we're shooting for is 0.6. And in Connecticut, we consistently exceed that. So we had 0.87 last year. And if you look at our success rates since 2012, basically since 2000 I guess you could say 2015, we've been above that 0.6 fledglings per pair rate. And our 10-year average is 0.76. So we are consistently achieving higher oyster catcher productivity rates than what is required in the oyster catchers business plan. It's one of the highest productivity rates on the entire Atlantic coast. So again, you guys all rock. So it's couldn't do it without your help. But we do still see some losses, particularly because of predation and human disturbance. Breeding oyster catchers consistently do better on offshore islands. We had 76% of our breeding population on offshore islands in 2023, 24% on the mainland. And it's typically because on the islands, you have less predators, you have less human disturbance. Not all islands, but a lot of the littler islands, less human disturbance, less predators, and that allows the birds to be able to hatch their chicks and fledge their young at a little bit of a higher rate. We also continue to band American oystercatchers in Connecticut. So, you know, Beth has been leading our oystercatcher banning effort since 2018 with support from Minwan from the state of Connecticut. And we've banded 76 birds to date, 51 adults and 25 fledglings, and have learned an awful lot about the movements, you know, during the breeding season, and information about mate and site fidelity. So we know we have 3 staging areas in Connecticut, and of our 23 of the Connecticut banded birds have either switched breeding sites or mates or both in the last 5 years. I probably said it last year, but when we first started monitoring oystercatchers, we thought that, you know, a pair was monogamous and they stayed together and they continued to nest at the same place year after year, because we tend to find the nests in the exact same spots. But then once we started banning the birds, we realized there was a lot more moving around than we thought there was. So we're always learning more about our oyster catchers. And one thing we were really happy to see last year was a pair of oyster catcher fledglings that were banded in 2020. Those birds returned in 2022. And then in 2023, both birds made nesting attempts. So these were birds that were hatched from Milford Point. And one of them attempted to nest at Milford Point, and one of them attempted to nest at Long Beach. So, you know, our birds that we are fledging here in Connecticut are returning to the state. And that is sort of, you know, why our population is growing. So productivity every year is a really good gauge of, you know, how did we do in any given year? But then the number of pairs tells us how we're doing over time. So the fact that our number of pairs is continuing to increase really shows that, you know, our high productivity rates are paying off. We also had, and this was exciting, in November, we heard that one of our Connecticut banded oyster catchers showed up in Colombia. You know, if you look back at this, you know, there's a map of American oyster catchers I've got here. First page, there it is. Look, Colombia is not even on the map, you know, so that's the furthest south an American oyster catcher has ever been sighted. And that's one of our Connecticut birds, going from, you know, the northern end of its range to the most southern spot thus reported. So super exciting information. Okay, and then, you know, just a reminder to everybody here, you know, you can help us with the resetting of American oyster catchers, piping plovers too. If you see a piping plover that is banded, you know, definitely make sure to include that in your reports to Scott, and also send a quick email to Laura so she can, you know, look up the information and we can find out where that plover came from. Oyster catchers, same thing, you can include that in your reports to Scott. You know, when you first start monitoring a site, that's a good time to really be paying attention to the birds that are going to be nesting at that site. But then also right now we have a lot of birds that are potentially passing through Connecticut and going to, you know, places maybe just a little bit to our north. So, or you might have birds that are moving around a bit. So, you know, birds that are sort of showing up in one spot and then eventually settle and nest in another spot. So, you know, this next month and a half is a great time to be keeping your eye out for the oyster catchers that are going to breed at the site that you are monitoring, but also oyster catchers that are passing through. And then same thing in sort of, you know, end of August, early September, you know, keep your eyes out for what is the last date that I see the oyster catchers that have been, you know, nesting at my site, or, you know, keep your eye out for oyster catchers that are sort of starting that migration south. You know, some oyster catchers don't go that far south anymore. You know, we've had some that breed in Connecticut over winter in Long Island, but then again, we've had Colombia. So, you know, we never know where these birds might be going. And so when they're arriving in the spring and when they're starting to depart late summer, early fall, great time to be keeping an eye out for oyster catchers. And you can put those in your reports to Scott, or you can also submit them to the American Oyster Catcher Working Group at amoywg.org. Okay, any questions on oyster catchers?
I saw, Dave, I saw semi-pilated.
Okay, and I know, looks like Beth and Scott have been answering questions in the chat. Anything that you guys want to bring up?
I think just for the wider group, some folks, or Scott, you came on here. Hang on, let me put my, I think there we go. Some folks are just asking about the lease turns. They tend to fluctuate, and lease turns are a little more adaptable than oyster catchers or plovers, where they hold territories. Lease turns, if they don't do well at one site, they will move to a completely different site, and we definitely saw that this year. I don't know, Laura, if you want to talk about that more. In years past, we had a colony set up at Long Beach, and we're not 100% sure what the disturbance was, and they all showed up at Milford. And then last year, the same thing happened. We had a disturbance at Sandy Point, and we saw a huge influx at Milford. So it's kind of a good thing because they're adaptable. If things aren't good at one site, they decide to bail and go try somewhere else really quickly. Our oyster catchers and plovers don't. They tend to stick to their site, and they will try to re-nest at that same place, even though they've had some, predation, human disturbance. There's a whole host of things that really impact our birds. But I don't know, Laura, did you want to say anything else?
No, I think you covered it. They're kind of enigmatic, if you will, in that they're there one day, they'll take off if there's high predator presence or something. Sometimes we know what the disturbance was, and most of the time we don't. But yeah, they are willing to up and leave and find another spot. And in fact, in Connecticut, our birds tend to nest later in the summer, which we think is birds from other places that are decided to up and leave or had failures, whatnot, are coming to Connecticut, and they nest in seemingly smaller colonies. So the years past where at Sandy Point there were, a colony of hundreds of birds, we don't seem to be seeing that as of late. There's small little colonies of like 20 pairs. But thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and we used to have, even in the beginning of this, as some of you remember, that 10 years ago, Milford Point or so, I think it was, we had a colony of like 600 or 700 at a peak. But that kind of collapsed. Besides all the constant disturbances, the forage was really poor all of a sudden, and then that'll wind it down. And they tend to really just want to gravitate, I think, we have better years after we've had the tropical storms and the hurricanes, because they really like to have a nice big wide open sandy beach too. Just more space, and that helps everything that my colleagues are saying. You have more room, you can spread out, you can have better vision of the predators. There's just a lot more going on, and it's a lot better shape then. So there's just so many. I mean, we've listed off like 8 or 10 variables already, and it's very difficult to understand, but they're picky, and at least they're doing all right. Like Laura said, though, it's not, it's not a grim headline, even though the data doesn't look so great.
Okay, Scott, you are up.
Okay, well, yeah, welcome back again, everybody. And we're going to go through basically the typical procedures again. All of you know this. Maybe some of you have done this, essentially for 20 years, or since Fish and Wildlife is doing it with you all, and others just in the past couple of years. But thank you to everyone who has joined us again. I am Scott Krupash, and I'm the volunteer coordinator of the Audubon Alliance for Coastal Waterbirds once again. And just in the overall sense, we're going to be looking at a season that's really the same in terms of your responsibilities and your day-to-day tasks. We're going to be collecting data for piping plovers, American oyster catchers, lease turns, and common turns, visiting the beaches, when you can, as you have before, whether it's a couple times weekly or once a month or something like that. Keeping in mind, it could be a long hike at some sites, and tough tides or somewhere like Griswold and so forth. We're going to keep reporting the disturbances that we just discussed, whether it's predators, abandoned dogs, masses of fish crows, the direct threats or takes, educating the beachgoers with kindness and courtesy, just saying, hey, have a good day, see you later, if they're starting to get a little anxious or a little upset themselves, while we continue to give all the birds space. And we're going to ask all of you again if you can, lend a hand at some of our strength dates, maybe do something more for the June census of all the plovers and all the beaches in the states for deep. And in some cases, whether it might just be distributing some literature on the beach or helping at a fireworks evening. Conduct is something that all of you know well, but we'll just touch on the basics again, that we want to be professional in our dress and appearance and our behavior at all times, and that you must have your CT Deep badge and the liability form signed with Deep, and we'll be getting those out to you later tonight, actually. So we'll get right on that. Volunteering means that we don't want to be doing things like swimming or smoking or drinking at the time. Fishing and having that beer can wait till a little later on after you're all done. The performance that you have on the beach is going to be reflective of how people perceive wildlife and conservation in general. So if we're just being super professional and really on top of things, they'll think it's a very professional and great operation and tend to support it more than if it's just kind of like a free-for-all. And if there's those rude people, just, hey, have a good day. See you later. Take care. We don't need to engage with that. You can tell us about the bad interaction later. Obviously, we don't want things to rise to the level of law enforcement action in any capacity. And just keep in mind that while COVID is finally seemingly past us for now, we still have people who want their private space and have some social distancing nevertheless at the shore. Keep your prep list in mind before you go out. You're going to check the weather, make sure the temperature is warmer than 50 but less than 90, because we don't want you to overheat or to get too cold. And the same for the birds and the nests. Obviously, we're going to stay home if it's raining or if there's a big threat of storms. Make sure you bring your Deep badge, binocular, spotting scope, phone, notebook, outreach materials, and keep in mind things like sunblock, water, a snack, insect repellent, a nice backpack or bag, a good hat and gloves, all that kind of thing, and to wear good sneakers or boots. And if you're sick or injured, as certainly happens sometimes, just please cancel, go to the next monitoring session, or whenever you do feel better, and just let us know beforehand, please. Again, you walk up to a nice day like this at Long Beach. Well, okay, I take this from the car and I'll head back home. And the next one, we haven't had that this year, and I don't think we're going to have the snow with the plovers, but sometimes it happens. And those days, just again, you see it, head on out. Monitoring procedures are really the same. You're going to check the electronic data form to make sure you know, again, remind yourself what's required from your name to the beginning and end times, tide, weather, the species you observe, the birds, and so forth. It's the same in the same link in the blog. You can scan the beach when you get there first, ideally staying near the water, keeping an eye out for birds in your path, just looking at different corridors slowly and scanning around, make sure we don't, walk into any piping plovers, especially with young. And that'll help avoid disturbing them, the nest, or getting them agitated. And keep in mind, again, all of you are experts, so you know how this works. You've been on the beach, you know the birds, but even those of us who have done this for decades, you don't want to go in the string fence areas, because even if you do it safely, other people will see it and they might not. Other people will think that it's just a suggestion then, and then I can go in there with my towel and all that kind of thing. And we really don't need to get better photos or egg counts or that kind of thing, because we know that when we see an exposed piping plover nest, there will be 4 eggs in it. We know to count turns just by counting the birds that are incubating, the adults, not necessarily the young or the nest themselves. That's, again, a good example of where we want to be. We're down here by the water. I'm looking up at the beach. There's a couple walking, but they're still a good distance away. This is zoomed at a 500mm lens and cropped. They're still a good distance away from the string fencing, and then beyond that, the exposure with the piping plover sitting on the nest and incubating in the middle. So we would just record that adult as incubating and be all set. And we'll keep recording all the 4 focal species, their breeding behavior, what they're doing. Maybe just, this part of the year, they're just foraging and setting up territories. We're starting to see some pairs, and we're starting to see some copulation. So all good to note. Keep in mind that the adult plovers will lead you away with the broken wing display, alarm calls, and that sort of thing. And that means we're just going to walk quietly and safely, slowly along the water and just say, see you later, birdies. But the terns get a little more aggressive and may dive bomb or poop on you or throw up on you and that sort of thing. And that even more, let's just go by the water and keep moving because, again, we want to keep their safety as paramount over any data or information. And we're going to try to minimize our time in all of these areas, especially when it's a little cooler now or a little hotter later. And cameras and photos, by phone and that sort of thing help a lot too. But just be aware that if you're getting events, whether it's just the birds, people, whatever else, that people might not like it. Obviously, we don't want the birds to get upset, but we don't want the people to get upset at us either. And you know what all the little chicks look like and how tiny they are. Just tiny, tiny, tiny little things. And it's fine to take their picture very far away and crop it a lot. We don't want to ever see photos, and people in past years, not any of you, but random people would send me photos, or you see people on the beach and, they're taking their phone and they're doing this. And it's quite obvious they're basically standing over the bird or the nest. And that's not what we need. You want to be by the water and take really far distant photos. You crop a lot. That's great. And, mom and dad get upset sometimes. And if they do, just keep on moving. So again, we're not trying to count the eggs or the tern nest. We're counting nests by observing the adults incubating, and we're knowing that they're, again, on usually 2 eggs for terns, 4 eggs for the plovers, and that sort of thing. If you find a new nest that's outside of the fencing, that's not exposed, that you think hasn't been recorded in previous surveys, don't mark it or approach it. Just notify us and describe all the landmarks around it. It was about 20 feet past this rock. There is a bush right near it, that sort of thing. 50 feet from the water, whatever else. If the nest you think is abandoned by the adults or destroyed by tides, predators, just tell us at AFCW and CT Deep by direct emails as soon as you can. And note any kind of things, unfortunately, like we do see often now, like fish crows sitting on exclosures, any digging underneath. Laura showed a picture of the crabs. All that kind of stuff is really good to note or photograph and then send back to us. And that kind of thing too. When we're in the neighborhoods here by these beaches, we see the kitties, and the guys show that a lot because people don't always believe the cute cats, which we all love. We all have cats, we all have dogs, but they're capable of doing things like this. And if they can do that to a cottontail, they can easily pick up and drag any of our birds or their young anywhere. And subtle sometimes, but you will see the fox or other predators just hunkered down, hanging out, sitting there at sunset, waiting to get out and hunt. So it's good to keep an eye out for more than just the birds. You can see the little piping plover in the path of some people fishing at Sandy Point there. And that bird safety is paramount and the data is secondary. Because while all of those people, maybe at Sandy there, are a disturbance, we are too, because the birds don't know that we're the bird lovers. So keep in mind that as we're walking and we're doing things, we're also disturbing them, even as we're taking all these counts and data in. And that if you see suspicious behavior, suspect the person could be responsible for destroying or harassing nests, chicks, adults, follow the good witness guidelines that are in the informational packet, which again, you'll get tonight, and call CT Deep Encon Police, which will be in the important phone number sheet. So again, the packet has all the usual information, whether it's dogs, phone numbers, how to be a good witness and recording and all that. And it'll have the incident observation report as well. And again, all of this, while you do these things, email or call CT Deep ASAP and let us at ctwaterbirds@gmail.com know too. Just keep in mind, we're not law enforcement. We don't have the badge and the gun. We're there to observe and to educate. We're taking in information. We're connecting people, maybe law enforcement to this situation, deep to this situation, but we're not actually doing it ourselves. And we're relaying that information to the beach goers in friendly and positive ways. If it's not a friendly, positive way, if people start to get upset, it happens. It's happened forever. Just wish them well. continue on your way, and they'll do the same, hopefully. And like Corey brought up, we're going to watch for our flagged and banded birds, like pink flagged 5E there at West Haven. And those are great to report to Laura and myself. There's N14, oyster catcher, again at West Haven. And it can be really helpful, again, to be able to, view these with binoculars or spotting scopes. Or in this case, you can see with the beach in front how much space there was between us. This bird is well in the fencing, and I was taking it from outside, of course. And you can still get the band when you come home, crop, read, zoom in. Okay, now I can read it. If you can't see it in person, just do it later on. Volunteer monitoring, as always, will take place from April 1st to August 31st. Our staff has been in the fields from February, and they'll go through at least October. Our greatest need remains at the busiest beaches during high traffic times. And you know what the busy ones are, like here at Milford Point. That was, I think, around Memorial Day weekend. So those big holiday weekends, the warm beach weather, once we get there, that's what we need the most. You can sign up at ctwaterbirds@gmail.com, as always, with your requested schedule, the dates of specific times, days of the week. If you can provide AM or PM at the very least, that helps. Or just say, every Saturday I look to get out there at 10 a.m. Fantastic. Please try to submit your schedules by April 1st. It's a quicker turnaround, I know now, and if it takes a couple more days, that's all right. But we'd like to get them, as soon as close, or as close as possible, rather, to the beginning of the field season. And just, it's always fine if you need to cancel a session because, again, you're sick, you're injured, something came up in your personal life, obviously the weather. Just let me know, please, ahead of time at ctwaterbirds@gmail.com. Data submission remains the same via the online data submission form on the AAFCW blog, ctwaterbirds.blogspot.com. In the upper right-hand corner under important documents when you view on a computer. You probably won't be able to see on the phone. You go in, you check and see all the fields. Once again, you'll get a good refresher, but enter everything that you need. And some things obviously in the beginning of the season, like young birds, will be at 0, so you can just leave it blank. There will be more documents and pertinent information that I will be including in the important documents section. I think I put the packet up already actually this afternoon, so it's already there, but I'll be emailing that out. And then we'll be adding more things like links to these videos for both the new and returning monitor trainings. If you go out and you're surveying or just birding for fun and you're finding shorebirds, terns, and long-legged waders on your personal time at other sites, you can always share that with us as well via the share function on eBird at ctwaterbirds@gmail.com. We really appreciate all the extra sightings and hours. That helps a lot too. And just in general, while that can be whenever, when you're out doing AAFCW monitoring, please submit the data as soon as possible when you return from the beach. Now, I realize sometimes life gets in the way, and that's totally fine. But data that we get a day or two after your visit is a lot more valuable than data that we get a month or two. And you can always keep an eye out, for other birds as well. Like that's a royal tern, a little different than our typical 2 nesting species. The locations remain the same. This year, we're going to be looking for priority coverage at Long Beach and Stratford, Milford Point and Milford, Sandy Morse Point in West Haven, and Bluff Point and Groton. And you saw on the table that Laura had, those are really the busy spots for our birds, and unfortunately, often enough, our disturbances. Other beaches that will want to be covered, include Griswold Point and Old Lyme, Hammond Nazet Beach State Park in Madison, Short Beach in Stratford, Pleasure Beach in Bridgeport, Compo Beach in Westport, and Silver Sand State Park in Milford. Sometimes we have birds at Sherwood Island State Park, Russian Beach, neighboring Milford and West Haven beaches, and Waterford Town Beach. And occasionally offshore islands and other beaches and marshes may have birds, as we kind of noted early, and those will be scheduled on a case-by-case basis. We will be doing what we have done in similar years since COVID. We'll be distributing badges and lanyards, and Laura's going to get them ready in the next few days, start getting all that together. It's quite a bit to do. And when we get those, they will be distributed to the Connecticut Audubon Society Coastal Center at Milford Point. the Roger Tory Peterson Estuary Center. And for those of you who want to join us at new volunteer field training, you can do so, whether it's you just want to stop by in the parking lot, say hi, drop off your waiver form, and pick up a badge and a lanyard if you need it. That's great. If you want to stay for field training because you want to hang out and spot some birds with us or get a refresher on that too, you're more than welcome to. It will probably be in West Haven. We're going to finalize that, and we're going to finalize the time soon. It's just, again, we're waiting a little more to see if they get all the paving done there so that we can just park in the lot. But otherwise, I mean, we're to the point of the questions again. If you have questions for the group, we'll take them again in a minute. But just remember, in general, contact Deep NCON police for takes or birds being harassed or attacked by people, and of course 911 for emergencies. You're going to email CT Deep Wildlife and AAFCW, again, ctwaterbirds@gmail.com for us as soon as possible about new nest, damaged fencing, signage, predated or lost nests, injured birds. And then every day on the daily sort of back and forth, you can email ctwaterbirds@gmail.com about scheduling and monitoring, bird IDs, paperwork, what to do about this weather conditions, if you should go out, predators and people, RSVP for fencing, show us pictures or videos, whatever else. But we'll be all set and hopefully good to go very soon as we finalize. Again, we're going to give you the packet. We have the videos to be done. There, and Corey notes, yes, exactly. The parking lot is done for Sandy, but we're waiting for the road to be paved and reopened. So hopefully we can access that lot and just park like normal. For those of you who have done this before, you know that we always have to get parking permission for West Haven. So if you have not sent it already, just please send me your license plate and your vehicle make and model. Just send that to ctwaterbirds@gmail.com. And in that case, then this year it should be an electronic parking system. So they will not be mailing passes. We do not need mailing address. We just need to put the parking information into the system. So I'll submit all your license plates, your name, and your vehicle information to the city. They'll put it into the electronic system, and then we'll be all set. And hopefully that'll be good for everybody. But otherwise, yeah, thanks everybody. And I saw the question from Kathy of dropping off forms if not going to beach training. You can fill out basically everything will be set except for basically the waiver form. And we can either, if you go pick up your badges and lanyards at Milford Point or the Estuary Center, you can bring your form and leave it at those places. You can even have it, get the form there and have it signed with a witness when you pick it up. Or if you want to, again, if you run into somebody in the field, you can do that as well. But we'll get them in that way, ideally.
I have a question. Patrice here. Well, actually a couple. I'm still a little confused about the badge thing, how we get that. And also brochures. And also I'm still confused about the parking at Sandy Point. What do I need to do?
Sandy, you just need to send me your license plate and your vehicle make and model, and I'll
Yeah,
submit
but I
all the
mean-
information to the city.
But then when I go there, what do I need to do?
Just park in the parking lot. The road should be paved soon and open, and you'll be all set. You don't
Okay,
have to do
so
anything.
don't have to do anything. Okay, all right.
Nope, because it's the electronic parking system, and they read plates of vehicles that enter the lot.
Oh,
And that
Okay.
plate, and then your license plate, having been submitted to me, will be given to the city, and the city will say, okay, that vehicle is allowed to park here. You're on the white list. You're all set.
okay, so, and it's supposedly all fixed. Last year we had to walk like a half a mile to get there. Okay,
Yes, they're just waiting for the paving of the road, and that was dependent on when they were opening their asphalt plant. And
okay,
that was depending on when the last freeze was. So there's
okay.
multiple levels to this saga, but hopefully, being March 28th and warming up, we will be in
Yeah.
good shape
Okay.
shortly. If for some reason we are not, we will be doing exactly that, parking at Morris Park
Mhm.
and then walking over.
Okay, well, I probably won't, I guess I wouldn't be starting till I can get the badge, which probably wouldn't be till, I guess it sounds like April 13th, right? At the field thing.
You can pick up badges and lanyards and paperwork and specifically the waiver form at Milford Point or at the Roger Tory Peterson Estuary Center, and those will be distributed shortly. Laura is getting them together over the next week, and then I will let everyone in the group know, hey, okay, great. So Milford Point has all these badges and all these lanyards, and it has a
Oh.
waiver form, so you can go pick it up, sign
Oh,
the form, have somebody witness it there if you want. They'll be all set. You take your badge or lanyard, and you're all good to go.
okay.
The beach
so
training
either one
is
of
a
those.
question there. The beach training itself will be on April 13th with
Yeah.
a rain date
So
of the 14th.
wouldn't be expecting
Saturday.
to start monitoring till after that point, I would say. Oh, it sounds
You
like.
can monitor if you have your badge and your lanyard. You can monitor as soon as you possibly receive them.
Okay, well, all right, I'll email you. I
Which
probably
might
can't
be
find
next
it.
week.
Huh? It
Which
might
may
be
be
next
which may
week?
very well be next week even.
You think it might be next week? Okay, well,
Laura's laughing, but
I'm
I'm
not
throwing it
sure.
on her.
Yeah,
There.
I don't, okay. Well, anyway, I'm expected to, I guess I'll email you because I probably can't do it till, I know I can't do it.
Well,
that,
that's fine. Everybody do what they want to, on your own schedules. Everybody has different times. Some folks, can't monitor till a certain point in the
Yeah,
season. Some can start and
Okay,
can't
okay,
finish.
all right.
That's totally
So
fine.
you'll be sending us all the info. Thank you very much.
Sure. And yes, there will be more parking information as usual for Griswold Point. That's the kind of thing Martha Rice from TNC will chime in on. We'll be submitting all the Griswold Point monitors to her, and she'll be in more contact for that. We are still determining the April 13th training. We are guessing, again, this is all part of the Sandy Point West Haven paving saga. But presumably, if we can go there, we will go there. And the time is to be determined, but it would be probably midday, late morning, midday. It would depend somewhat on tide too, I'll say that, if we can kind of avoid a high tide. I haven't checked the tides, honestly.
Hey Scott, worst case scenario, if someone can't pick up their badge, I can mail them the paper part if they still have the badge
Okay.
holder and the lanyard. So if someone is really just can't get there, I can get those out in the mail pretty quickly because I could just slap a stamp on them.
Phenomenal. Okay. Yeah, it's difficult for mailing larger items, I know, from deep, so that's yeah.
Harder than you
So
think
there
it
you
would
go.
should
Yes,
be.
we can. Yes, I remember this from the past. But yes, if you do need that and you can't find your way to Milford or Old Lyme or to the training on the 13th, then we'll find a way to mail you one. I'll answer that in a second. But last year, we wouldn't want to use last year's because they are all dated. And to some degree, you might actually be checked in some places. Like Stratford might be like at Long Beach, hey, do you have a badge, for this year? Well, I have the last year's. Well, that doesn't mean you are now. It expired. And then they will say no go.
And I need waivers from everyone, and this is kind of also a way. You give me your waiver, I give you your badge. Someone asked about identifying the birds' ages. We do have our brochure on how to age piping plovers on the website. So you can.
Yes, if you can, we'll put up documents again if Laura can ship that by me again, please.
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
the actual, yeah. And we'll put those up on the blog and we can send those out too if you ever need them. There are specific things that you look at to age, say piping plovers is hatchlings and chicks to fledglings and juveniles. And sexing birds is a little more difficult. There's things like looking for the eye fleck in a female oyster catcher, versus not in the male, or looking at the bands and the darker plumage of a adult piping plover being more of a male and a female the opposite. But so that's in there, and certainly it gets easier once the birds are paired off and you can identify them, and that your birds and this bird is sitting on a nest, and well, this looks like the female and this looks like the male, and you can better put that in the reporting. But if you don't know, you can still continue just to put a pair or U for unknown as an adult. Shirts, if you want to. Does somebody want to say that? Beth, you want to say that?
So
There
we
was a
do have
question of, are we
shirts.
doing? Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
We do have shirts. If anyone wants more volunteer shirts, you're returning volunteers. We do have some stock left. Sizes are limited at this point. We are trying to get some funding so we can order more, but we do have shirts. If you're interested, let Scott know. He'll forward it over to me. I can make sure we have what supply we have at Milford, the Coastal Center, at Roger Torrey Peterson Estuary Center in Old Lyme. If anyone would like another volunteer shirt, definitely helps when you're out on the beaches. I agree. And there was another, so the aging guide, Laura, I was looking for that as well. So that is super helpful. We will make sure we get out to folks, because I was looking for it. I couldn't find it to give it to our new field staff. So it is really great when we get that. Scott will send it out to you. It's a huge help when you're looking, because you don't want to get close to them. But there are subtle differences that makes a huge help when you're looking to get ages of chicks. Medium
And the
sleeves, I
same
see
for
that. Okay, everybody wants these small
yeah,
shirts. I
size
got
one.
lots of big shirts left. So, all right. So I'm going to take an inventory. I will get what we have out to both the centers. So folks, when you're picking up your lanyards or badges, we do have some funds. We're going to order some more shirts. And we'll be in touch. Just email Scott. If you let him know, he can give me a tally and we can work on that. But yeah, I found just even having a staff shirt, volunteer shirt, it definitely helps when you're trying to talk to folks, and also walking around the beach. People know that you're actually there in an official capacity, because they don't really see your badge hanging around your neck. So yes, we are super happy to get folks shirts. So just email Scott and we'll make sure we have enough where they need to be that you can pick up. And I see that in Old Lyme. Great.
And basically everything will be in Old Lyme and Milford that you need to pick up. So if you need, I see a thing about what, when, and where brochures are.
Brochures.
There are piles and piles of brochures that will be available in Old Lyme and Milford. Please do take brochures by all means.
Yeah, we were on a call today and somebody's like, I have 10 boxes of brochures in my office. I want to get them out of my office.
Thousands.
So, thousands. I think like 10,000.
Literally thousands. Please
so
take some brochures.
There will be a lot of brochures at Milford Point and at Roger Torrey Peterson Estuary Center. And, you can take 50, because it's important for you to have materials that you can hand out to people you're talking with on the beach. And I keep a stash in my car. So like I always have some, brochures, stickers. I always have some available that I can hand out to people.
So I see, starting when? So we're hoping to have all the materials and all the supplies at our locations next week. Badges, Laura, we might have to, that might be, we'll see. If it's not next week, it'll be the week after, but Scott will make sure. Scott's great. He will let you all know and keep you all up to date when we finally get everything to all these locations. But we're hoping it will be, within the next 2 weeks. So that way you all can be equipped and get ready to go out and help us monitor birds. So we're going to have nests soon.
I think there are a lot of brochures at Milford already. I do
Yes,
believe.
there are brochures already. Yeah.
Massive amounts. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can throw out there, if anybody's closer to the bend to the river in Southbury, we have brochures there too. So just another spot. If that's close for you and you want to swing by, maybe just let Scott know. He can send me a quick message and I can make sure that there's some set up for you.
Are there any other questions? Anything else we can help with? I mean, we appreciate everybody again joining us this year, and we got really good timing right to 8 o'clock. So that's awesome. What do you think about that question, Corey? I don't know if you want to take that.
Is it okay if we look at leaving brochures? Yes, that is okay. And actually, like, so, Joe Atwater, will actually do that, at some point in the season. Is he'll go to a bunch of the libraries and town halls and community centers in sort of the Eastern Connecticut part of the state. So, we'll get them out to areas in Eastern Connecticut. But if you're in Central or Western Connecticut and want to drop some brochures off at a library or community center, that's great. We would really appreciate that. It's just, getting the word out to a few more people, so that when they visit the beach, maybe they will be a little bit more mindful of the birds. Lots of questions coming in. So one of them, Laura, there's a question for you.
Yep.
There's a 9-year-old who's going to be monitoring, and she would like to have her own badge, if that's okay.
Yep. That is fine.
Yep.
And then Steve, asked about Southbury. So Steve, we do have some additional brochures. We don't have badges or T-shirts, but we do have brochures at the Bend to the River in Southbury. So if you or anybody else wants to just pick up some brochures, that is an option. Just make sure you let Scott know so he can let me know. So we make sure that the day you're stopping by, somebody's there and we can give you brochures. Typically, there's someone there 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
We've tried fencing on weekends and other times. For the most part, that's something that is clashing with, the lives of staff and their schedules, because you have a lot of people who, whereas for me, it's just I just work, I'm a contractor, I'm working my own business, I can do whatever, whenever, so I'm all over the place. But a lot of people who are working for these organizations and staff and time, that just does not work well, and that's most of the people we're getting. And in other cases, we have tried it, still not really getting people to come. A lot of people have a lot of different obligations on the weekend, and sometimes they can, whether it's the kids have the game tomorrow, or oh, I got to drive over here, I got to get this done to the store. It just hasn't worked out that way very well. But if you can come to fencing, during the week like that, that would be great. And we'll see what we can get. Typically we get several people to help out at every site, and even just that much helps.
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2 people make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Even if you can just do string or flagging, it's a big difference. Much appreciated.
It's worth just mentioning, if you guys probably all saw the message from Scott already, but the sort of the big fencing days where we are definitely looking for volunteers are Long Beach, which is this coming Tuesday, April 2nd, Sandy Point, which is Tuesday, April 9th, and then Bluff Point, which is Thursday, April 11th. And there are rain dates for all of those as well, but those are the current dates for those 3 fencing events. And like Beth said, just a couple extra people makes a huge difference. And if we need to switch to a rain date, Scott will send a message out the day before, just so everybody is in the know.
Yeah, we're watching the weather. If we were just talking about this in the afternoon for our own staff, but Tuesday looks a little iffy, but we're hoping, or next week, rather, I forgot what day it is, but yeah, next week looks a little iffy, and then we're like, oh, well, I think the rain will move enough until the evening that we might be able to get it in the morning. So it's all kind of a game there of back and forth.
Yep, and fencing starts at 10 a.m. For all those locations. And I actually forgot, Griswold Point is another one where we could use help, and that is also on at the 10th. That one is on April 15th. It looks like
Thanks. If you can help at
interest in
any
helping.
fencing.
Any more questions?
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're good. Thank you all for joining tonight. We look forward to seeing you on the beaches this summer. And thank you again for all your dedication and hard work. And we couldn't do this without you. So let's get out there and monitor. Everybody have a great rest of your week. And we'll be, Scott will be in touch with all the logistics and details, and we will see you out on the beaches soon.